Hi, this is Zippy from Rainbow, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh, with me as always, our co-host Chris Bixby, and Matt Bingel with his pal, Julius the Snoof. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Jake.
We're good, Jakey. Hi, everybody. Hello. How you doing, Jakey?
It's awesome to hear. I'm doing great. As always, thank you for asking.
And who do we have today?
Today's guest we have for today, he's a puppeteer, performance, and visual artist, and actor who's done a lot of puppetry projects we mentioned later, including performing Bob in Its Epic World, puppeteering Pooh in the Book of Pooh, Between the Lions, Oobi, and he also done some Sesame Street projects as well, and a bunch of others which we'll get into later. Please welcome Mr. James Godwin. Happy to hear, James. Happy to hear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? There might be some construction noise happening, so I apologize in advance.
Oh, it's okay.
That's
No
all
worries
right.
at
All
all.
right. No worries. Happy
Happens.
to have you here.
How are you
Yes.
guys?
Absolutely. Doing
Good.
great. Thank you.
Doing good.
Thank
Doing
you.
great.
So for those to kick things off, for those who don't know you, could you kind of like tell our audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. I went to art school and then I moved to New York and I worked for an artist and I painted his paintings for him. And I was doing performance art and then I made masks the whole time. So I worked in theater too. And so masks led to puppets. And then I started doing puppets here in New York in the East Village where no one really did puppets. And so there was kind of an opening for that. I can kind of claim with my friend Tim Lagasse that we invented the puppet slam back in the day. And so I was doing puppets, and then I met up with Mitchell Kriegman, who was doing Bear in the Big Blue House. And we worked on a couple projects together because he had seen my work in a live situation. And then I basically begged him for a job. And then I met Jim Krupa and Tyler Bunch and Peter Lintz and a bunch of people who helped me out to, get me into the fold per se. And then I worked on Book of Pooh because I was experienced in tabletop puppetry, American tabletop. I've heard that you're not supposed to say bunraku in American puppetry. But, that was my side. I was obsessed with bunraku. So I was doing tabletop with a few friends of mine, and a lot of there weren't many people that experienced with tabletop, meaning there's legs and arms and everything working all at once. And so that was Book of Pooh. It was a very challenging show, very groundbreaking show. Nobody's really done anything like it since. Same thing with Big Big World. Mitchell was very interested in making something that looked entirely different from usual television, which I think he was successful at. So I ended up on those shows, and then I was still doing my own work, live theater. I did a piece called, or a cabaret show called Uncle Jimmy's Dirty Basement. It's like a puppet rock show. And I did a couple of one-man shows. One was Lunatic Cunning, and the other one was the Flatiron Hex. That was my latest one. I'm working on one right now, but the pandemic kind of shut everybody up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. So now, before working as a puppeteer and artist, how did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up my dad taught theater at a college in Pennsylvania. My parents met. They were both actors in Indiana. My dad went to Notre Dame. They got divorced, and I would spend the school year in Indiana, and then I would go back to work with my dad in the summers, where we did basically summer stock. and then we would come in to see shows in New York because my dad he pretty much saw every show ever. He was a really good director, a very stern taskmaster kind of guy. So that's where I got my theater training. But as a kid, I'm fourth of six of the official brood. Then there's lots of step children after that. So we were all pretty much involved in the arts, as far as I can tell. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to be supported in my choices to be an artist, to go to art school, stuff like that. Because I've met a lot of people who struggled with their parents that didn't get the approval that they needed to like be an artist or just be a weirdo.
Right.
Or just to do what they wanted instead of like going to law school or I don't mean to do any of that. My experience. I played too many sports. I wish I could have those hours back. But those days are gone, peer pressure and all that. I was bullied a lot because I was a new kid in Indiana. So I had to learn to fight, but I knew how to fight because I had an older brother. So that's a weird thing to talk about. Some people get triggered or upset by that, but that's the truth of my existence. I was bullied a lot. So that's another impetus for how I, became an entertainer. I could diffuse a situation or be confrontational if the situation needed it. I got a full scholarship to go to art school because of my art teacher. I went to art school and met the best friends of my life. And then I moved to New York. Yeah.
Starting with puppetry, what made you get into it? And I know you kind of just talked about like your dad and whatnot, but what made you want to get into puppetry?
This is one of my favorite questions that I talk to puppeteers about because my experience is a little bit different, but we all have this kind of like a click moment. I was making masks and doing performance art. I was basically just performing with costumes and doodads. And I was obsessed with this drawing on a cave wall that had a shaman laying down and there was a stick with a bird on the top of it. And so I was like, oh, I could do that. I could just get a bird. I love the Muppets and everything, but I never thought I was going to do puppets. So I found, I don't know if you guys remember, there used to be these things you could get when you'd go to Maine or Connecticut or something. It was like a little lobster claw that was on a stick that you could kind of pull with your finger. Anyway.
Interesting.
So I was like, oh, I'll make the bird out of that. I found it in the garbage. But the problem was that the mouth opened this way, and that's not how it's supposed to go that way. But it
Right, yeah.
So I got obsessed with trying to figure out how to turn that around, and so I rebuilt the whole thing. And then I was obsessed with the process because it's basically like an onion. You can't find. It's an infinite puzzle, which interested me. It's kind of like painting, but painting at a certain point it's kind of like, what are you going to do? Finding some way to animate matter in front of people for an audience that makes them go, ah, that little moment, that's all you need. And then that was it. And then I got obsessed with making mechs. And I met a bunch of people. I overbuilt a million puppets, and then I met people who worked at Henson, and I worked at Henson, and yeah, it just kind of went from there.
So I'm kind of curious, do you remember what your very first professional puppeteering gig was?
I do. It was called Street Sharks. It was a TV commercial. It was kind of a rip-off of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were Street Sharks. You can probably see it if you look it up right now on YouTube. There were these muscly shark things. I went to an audition that a friend of mine got me into, and somehow I got it. I ended up doing the commercial with Joey Mazzarino and
oh wow,
Randy.
Nice.
And I have no monitor skills at all. Just absolute. I faked it. I faked. I don't know how I got the job. Seriously, I don't know how I got the job. I think I made a weird shark sound, even though they didn't record us. I ended up getting in a van with Randy Carfagno, Joe Mazzarino. I didn't know Joey at all at the time. We go up to a studio in Rochester, and Joey was getting his takes in like 2 seconds, and I was taking forever to get my takes. They were really short because you had to like pop through a thing. That was my first professional job, and Joey Mazzarino walked me through, like he was basically like holding my arm while I had this weird flat rubber puppet strap.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was like, no, what the fuck? I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, it's cool, man. It's cool. It's fine. And then I got a call later on, like a couple months later, for Toy Fair, where the agency, the toy company, was like, can you come and perform at Toy Fair? You know, we do like 8 shows a day, and I had already done industrials, so I was used to that. And I was like, great. So I end up at the Toy Fair doing 8 shows a day with Vin Diesel.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That is on YouTube now. You can see that. You can actually see my head.
Nice.
I had hair back then. But yeah, he was
Wow.
like talking about he had just done his own movie. He talked a lot. And you know, because in between shows were kind of, because there were 2 guys, like the villain and the hero. Vin was the hero, there was the villain guy, and it was just me in a box that would pop out with the shark. So I just basically sat there. I didn't have to. And we'd just sit there in between shows drinking coffee, and he's like, I made this movie and I did this thing. And it was like, how did Spielberg looked at it? I was like, you're full of shit. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
No worries. No
Good.
worries.
You're good.
And
You can swear as
'cause
much
I
as you want, as you want.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a pitch me moment. You got to work with Vin Diesel. That must have been really cool.
Oh yes.
Well, you know, it was weird. It was weird because industrials are a challenge, because it's not really an audience. They're kind of just coming
Right.
through to buy stuff.
Yeah. That's cool. You got to work with Vin Diesel though.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, you know,
It's
That'd be very cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was at a toy fair though. Yeah.
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 it's on YouTube. Somebody just released it. I saw it a couple months ago. Somebody found it and sent it to me.
Oh wow.
Oh,
I'll definitely have to
nice.
check that out after we're done.
one of your earliest puppeteering gigs was on the long-running PBS series Between the Lions. Oh yeah,
Amazing show.
Yes. Yeah.
certainly a wonderful show, and one we've had previous guests on as well. Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Yes.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of people. We talked to Chris and
Number of
Norman.
people. Chris and Norman, Pam Marciero, Jennifer Barnhart.
Jan, yeah.
David Matthew Feldman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of
they
great
made
people
some
from that show. Yeah.
Wonderful people.
Yes.
What was
Yeah.
it like getting to work on such a show?
Well, that was a big leap ahead for me. I really can't remember. I think Kathy Mullen and David Frith, I think they saw my work in a live situation, and I was friends with, and still friends with Tim Legassi, who he had just gotten out of UConn, and he was working on Between the Lions, and we were doing a live show, and Jim Krupa also worked on Between the Lions, and he is my mentor. And, I had worked on Bear in the Big Blue House, and
Oh, nice.
Nice.
people thought I was nice. And so I got to meet Kathy and Michael, you know, because you know Kathy Mullen, she's
Yeah.
you know Michael Frith too. So I was just blown away.
Mookie Fraggle. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
lot of things.
Wonderful.
And so I was talking to Michael before I knew even who he was, and my friend Tim had to tell me. He's like, you know, that's Frith. I was like, I don't know what. So they invited me on to be like a day player,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like right-handers. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Right.
And so that was another good learning experience because that set was really challenging and they made it look so amazing because Kathy was directing a lot, but they were also bringing in directors and supporting artists like myself. And I was just blown away. I was, again, out of my depth. I really was like, when you have 3 cameras moving and 5 other puppeteers doing stuff, that's a whole different ballgame. So I really got my feet wet there, and Jim Krupa was there. He was puppet captain for most of it, if I remember correctly. And then they asked me to design and build a puppet for a special segment. It was based on a folk tale about a little forest man, because they had seen I have a character called Mungo who basically just danced, tabletop dance.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I remember.
And I can't remember the name of the character now. Anyway, they asked us. I had a company, 3 other people. We were called the Elementals, and so they hired us to make this puppet. It's Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis were in the episode. They were a couple. It's kind of like in the Virgin Islands, because Michael and Kathy. Michael is from the Virgin Islands, or his family is, and it's about they find this little forest man and they bring him into the house, and then because they bring him into the house and domesticate him, he starts to fall apart, and then the whole forest starts to die. So we had to do this whole transform thing. Again, way out of my depth. I co-designed it with Michael Frith. I still have the drawings. He won't give you drawings. He's a very sweet man, though, and he's a freaking genius. So, yeah, that was, and then they really trusted me to do a big chunk. And they had another director. So I've worked with Kathy and Michael a lot after that. And Between the Lines was a very special production.
Oh yeah.
Mostly because the curriculum was great. The scripts were always great.
Yes.
Very curricular driven shows. Very.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was Chris. What's his name? I can't remember his last name.
Surf. Yeah.
Christopher Surf.
Yes.
Yeah.
No
So
mistakes.
there are a lot of really good brains working on that show. And again, I was so out of my depth of just like trying to keep my arm in the air.
Yeah.
Okay. A day after day of like, wow. And this, again, the sets look great. All the shots were great. Everybody on set was really like knew what they were doing, which doesn't happen all the time. So yeah, that was my experience.
And when we talked to them, a lot of them said that, and I agree, Between the Lines is probably one of the best kids shows on television.
Oh yeah. Especially the last 25 years. That's for sure.
Even there's some people who don't know the show. Even Jen said, okay, if you I think it's the best children's series of all time that you absolutely never heard of.
It's the best. It's the best children's show of all time that you probably never heard of. Her words, not ours. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm kind of curious, and since you mentioned Bear, do you remember what you did for that show?
On Bear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. I was doing performance art, like I said, with my 3 friends. We were doing weird puppet shows because no one was doing puppet shows, and we stood out. So we were doing comedy clubs, we were doing nightclubs, and weird venues, and then we did. The Henson Company used to do an international festival, and so we were too weird to get booked to do like a main stage show, so they kind of threw us a bone to host the cabaret, which was kind of a tradition of the national festival, which I was unaware of. So anyway, we would do the show. I was at PS122. I had already done 3 shows there. PS122 it's still theater there, but it was different back then. So I had a relationship with them. So I was producing a show every 2 years, or making a show every 2 years. And So we did this festival, and we would do like a cabaret, and like lots of weirdo puppeteers who would just come through, and we would host. And I get a call from my friend Mark Russell, who used to run PS122, and he's like, "This guy is just calling me, and he's like, he wants to meet with you." And I was like, "Oh, that's." Again, I was like, "That's bullshit. That's bullshit. There's no way." So I go to Astoria, to the studio where they're shooting at the time where they shot. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In the big rooms. And I wasn't watching kid shows. I wasn't even watching TV. I was too busy being a cool East Village artist, man. So I go there. I have this like meeting with Mitchell Kriegman. He's like, "Well, I want to do something with your character. What do you think about a development deal?" I was like, "Absolutely. Yes. Great." Handshake. I leave with my friend John. We were business partners, puppeteers. John worked for National Marionette. He worked for Baird. He's also one of the reasons why I got into puppetry. He was my roommate. Super hippie. Smoked a lot of weed. Anyway, I got home, and I was thinking about, I didn't even know what a development deal was, and I was looking for a job, frankly. And I called Mitchell back up, and I was like, "Hey, is there a job for me on this show?" Because he walked me around in the studio, and everybody's puppeteering and stuff. Tyler's there, Peter's there, Troupe is there, and I was like, "Is there a job for me? I'll sweep up. I'll just like do whatever." He's like, "Oh, let me talk to somebody. Maybe we'll get you in." Jim Krupa hired me sight unseen to come in and do a day. And you're basically way in the back, because they would do these big chorus shots, kind of like they did on Between the Lines, but like lots of characters. So every puppeteer got a job. And like everybody. And again, my monitor skills are like, and I'm way in the back, and I'm in the pit. I can't see the monitor. And Krupp was like, you can't see the monitor. I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I'm a theater guy, whatever." He's like, "Oh yeah, just remember, countdown, 3, 2, 1. Be moving before the shot happens, because you don't want to like start, because that ruins the cut." Oh, that makes sense. And then it just kind of went from there. I guess people thought I was easy to work with, and I had a lot of enthusiasm and got really excited, because when there's something that I don't know how to do, I tend to like chase after it. And this was one of those puzzles, again, because on top of puppetry, then you have 3 cameras. Yeah. 3 cameras shooting live with 10 other puppeteers, and all these crazy like Jim Krupa gag rigs. There was a lot of mice. So that was my first gig. Again, way out of my depth as far as bear goes. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So now we mentioned in your introduction you also puppeteered on the Book of Pooh, which you mentioned, of course, used tabletop style puppetry. Can you kind of talk about working on that show?
Yes. Somehow Mitchell Kriegman, the producer, showrunner, whatever you would call him now, after, I think there was some legal trouble with Bear, but most kid shows only do 2 seasons, or if they do 3, it's super rare. So he pitched Winnie the Pooh, and he wanted to do it on a virtual background with 3D modeled CG sets, computer generated sets. And this was a long time ago, so computing power was not what it is today. So I was very experienced in tabletop, multiple person puppets, like, you know, 1 person doing feet, 1 person doing arms, 1 person doing head and torso, generally speaking. A lot of people tried 1 foot, hand. So he, once he got the green light, there were some workshops, rehearsal room. I was working for Julie Taymor at the time, so I couldn't really go in that much, which probably was a good thing. But you know, tabletop is hard. It's teamwork. It's more than just arm in the air. You have to bring weight. You have to show the center of gravity, which is kind of like weight, but you also have to show intent, and you also have to be able to communicate without words to your other puppeteers. So I was in one of the workshops, and the team that I ended up with, I think it was Tyler. Peter was there too, Peter Lentz. And I just kind of like I got into like, you know, Winnie the Pooh, he can't look like he's floating around. He's a little fat dude who likes to eat honey. And, you know, he's kind of stomp. And my friend, bless his heart, Eric Engelhardt, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I think so.
Very sweet man. He's since passed away.
Mhm.
He worked for Muppets. He was a builder. He was in the workshop, and he ended up being on the feet, which is like the worst, hardest, most important part of the puppet. So I think it was he and I was doing arms. I think it was Peter Lentz in a workshop. And then I had to go back to work because I was working on Across the Universe, the Julie Taymor movie. And then they go through all this casting process, who's in, who's out. Yeah. And then Kriegman calls me and he's like, so we're starting. I was like, oh, okay. what am I doing? He's like, oh, you're on Winnie the Pooh. You're doing the arms. I was like, okay, all right. I also need you to coach the other people. I was like, oh, all right, I can do that too. He's like, no, seriously though, because it's going to be hard. I was like, yeah, I know. I do this a lot. I know how to coach. Yeah, absolutely. And then there we were. Peter Lentz on the head, torso, me on arms, and yeah. Crazy
Nice.
town.
Yeah, well, wonderful show. I'm glad it's on Disney Plus.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, that's right. I want to tell you guys a story though, because
All
Eric
right.
Engelhardt.
Yeah, of course.
Look up Eric Engelhardt. He on his own he built Pepe at the shop at Henson
Oh wow.
on his
Oh,
own without a designer. He just made it, and he
huh.
kind of like threw it in the pile, and Pepe became this huge. And to
Yeah.
Bill Burr at his credit, he's an amazing performer.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Amazing
yes.
puppet. But Eric made that thing on his own. Never really got the credit. I mean, we did a memorial for him and
My
talked a lot
gosh.
about it. Anyway, I didn't know Eric. He was a very eccentric character, as am I. And we got cast to do Winnie the Pooh. And so I got really serious on it. And the builders, Matt Brooks, Annie Fresh, Andrea Detweiler, so many people. Anyway, it's a beautiful puppet. It worked to me. You can feel, you have to have haptics through the puppet to feel each other as you're working. Eric and I would get into these really philosophical discussions about like, how are we going to do this? Because he needed this kind of rocking movement. So, and Peter was way into that too. Peter's amazing, as you know, Peter Lentz.
Absolutely.
So Peter was a great leader, and we were all really into it, and we would barely get any rehearsal time. And it was about a month into the show we were shooting. I was really frustrated because I thought everything looked like shit. Not because of our puppetry, but I just thought it just kind of looked like, can't really describe it. And then we worked really hard as a team, and we did this shot where Pooh had to walk up on a stack of books and reach into a basket and pull out a banana and then walk back down in one shot. So, you know, we get the top stick tape in his paw. The banana only weighs like a fraction of an ounce because it's made out of super thin L200. We rehearse it once. Boop, 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 climb up these things, grab the thing. I squeeze because it had a little squeeze mech in his hand. Squeeze it on the banana, come back down. Peter would do this beautiful, like, you know, you look back down. Usually if you climb up something, you look back down before you climb back down. He did this very theatrical, like, climb back down.
Mm-hmm.
Shot once, they're like, We do the shot the next time, and the puppet took over. It was another reason why I love doing tabletop, because we all were going through that puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean, who was directing, I think, Dean Gordon, was like, we got it. That's it. 2 takes. And we were all wearing like green, like, reflective hoods and all kinds of shit. And I take my mask, I take my hood off, I look at Eric, and then Peter like goes, I was like, did you guys feel that? And Peter was like, that was weird. Like, so you felt that too? And Eric was like, that's it, man. That's it. And then we went into the green room and sat there and it was like, the puppet did that, you know? Eric and I were very into the esoteric side of it, of like getting out of your own way. And Peter is too, in a certain degree. But I think that was the first time he had that kind of experience where it transcended your conscious manipulation of the object.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's crazy that Eric actually built Dog Hog for Bear.
Yep.
Which is pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Englehart was a force of nature again. He was quite the character.
Yeah.
I miss him every day.
Ah.
Aw,
Good guy.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
A very
Absolutely.
good guy. Super
Definitely.
freak.
Yes.
And very good at karaoke.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So on the subject of tabletop puppetry, you also puppeteer one of your own characters, Bob the Anteater, on another PBS series, It's a Biblic World. What's it like working on that?
That was great because I got to do the voice for the first time in that context.
Mm-hmm.
It was challenging because we pre-recorded the tracks because we were all working on green screen, so they couldn't really mic us live, which is very difficult because you have to lip sync your own pre-recorded track. Seems like it would be easy. Wasn't very easy, but I was used to lip syncing because I had worked with a theater company where we did a lot of lip sync, where there would be a pre-recorded track and we would perform to it. So I had that. And it was a challenge though, because again, the casting process was really kind of like everybody trying to get in, help their way in, which is this show business, it's fine. But there was a lot of shuffling around, a lot of workshopping. Bob got tossed around to everybody pretty much, like almost every character. Then again, Mitchell Creekman during the workshop said, like, because I have a pretty deep voice, and he just kind of throws it off like a challenge to me. It's like, what if you did it in a high register? What if you did that? I'm like, I can do that. And so I started doing that. And then it clicked, and then he was like, okay, yeah, okay, all right, so you're gonna do Bob. And then there was a certain amount of empathy, and then I got really into the character. In fact, Bob is here in my studio.
Oh, nice.
Totally turned toast. He's very cute. And I got to work with Carol Binion and Tim Lagasse again, who's usually my arms, and again, Eric Englehart. And it was the arms on the little monkeys. Tyler's character.
Oh, Winslow, yeah.
Yeah, Winslow.
Yeah,
sorry,
Winslow,
yeah.
yeah.
Winslow, yes, of
Mhm.
course.
Love
I was-
Winslow.
I was usually the arms on that, unless there was a weird shot where I couldn't. I was also the big turtle lady a couple of times.
Oh, Madge, yeah.
Madge, yeah.
Yeah, I was in that suit a few times. It was really great. It was hard because we all had to go and live in out on Long Island, so we would be there for the whole week, and then I would commute home. It's kind of good, but kind of weird. The puppetry was really good. Again, Englehart, Tim Legassi, a bunch of other people, Melissa Creighton, and we were just kind of like figuring it out. Things would crash, the computer would crash, be up against constant challenges. Snook was a beautiful, beautiful suit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That thing. I mean, when you see those things in real life, like seeing Bear,
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture somewhere. I should have taken it out for you guys, but I am such a fucking like theater nerd that when I was on Bear and I saw Bear come out in the suit, I was like, what? And then Noel, who's just like the sweetest man.
Oh, Noel. I
Noel
love
just-
Noel.
Oh,
just
yeah.
like a
Great friend
big
of mine.
hug. Yeah, Noel's
Yeah.
just Again, Noel's another mentor of mine and a friend.
Oh, yeah. And he recently
Yeah.
published his memoir, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the shit.
Yeah, there it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if I'm answering. It was the first time I got to do a voiced character and explore. Like, of course, the scripts were kind of limited to about 4 scenarios. Something gets lost, somebody gets lost. Let's go help, or let's do a project, that kind of thing. But you would do pre-records, and the music was really good.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The guys doing the music and the women and the recording process was really great. It was tough. It was a lot of work. But the music was extraordinary. Brian Woodbury, the other guy who ended up in White Rabbits or something. And I love to sing in the booth. It was really great. So
Yeah, love Brian Woodbury. He's a previous guest as well.
really,
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
yeah, because I
Uh-huh.
knew him from way back in the early, like even before puppetry. I knew him from the East Village days at this theater called Dixon Place. And then I
Oh,
walked
nice.
into
Wow.
the studio to record. I'm like, Brian Woodbury, what the fuck are you doing in here? He's like, what the I had no idea. And then we recorded, I don't know how many songs, a lot. And I love recording vocal tracks. It's kind of something that I grew up doing. I've done some voiceover and stuff. So it gave me a lot of opportunity to feel like I had a real contribution to the show rather than just being in the back and wiggling. And then I got to perform with my best friend Tim, doing the hands. And we would come up with all this crazy stuff, like magnifying things and magic tricks and walking. And yeah, it was really a great time. It was a lot of work, but it was really
Yeah.
Nice.
So now I'm curious. Do you have any favorite It's a Big World episodes?
I'm partial to Bob's episode with the bee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, mostly because I don't know that it's mostly because I worked really hard on it. I also like Compost Heap because the song's really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the bee was one of those moments when I was, we're doing pre-record. And so I was doing the pre-record. And the director, I forget her name, she would do the vocal directions. And sometimes we would have disagreements because, acting, directing, whatever. So I was doing this thing about talking to this bee. And I don't know what happened, but I kind of just like really broke into it.
Oh, are you talking about the My Friend Will Be Right Back episode? Something
Yeah.
on that beat. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
She had a name. The bee had a name though. I can't remember. Anyway, it's there. But it was an emotional pre-record moment that I really got into, and I had like a nice, again, a breakthrough moment because the director pushed me to do that. And then I got to perform it with my friend Tim and Carol Binion and Eric. And, you know, when you get a lot of time to do, there was just Bob. There was nobody else there. You get to really focus. And then again, you kind of transcend, like I would just, I would hear my own voice coming through the playback. And I would be looking at the monitor and I would be seeing Bob and concentrated, but we could all just kind of like flow through that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and when it's pre-recorded, that's really hard. But music helps. And the bee was definitely, because I love bees, and yeah, that was a big breakthrough. But Compost Seep was probably another big break.
Nice.
I get a song to myself this show. Yay!
I know.
You know, yeah.
Yay.
Since you just mentioned the music, what were some of your favorite songs from the show?
Compost Heap, definitely.
Yeah.
Another one.
Well, I really like because it's one that I remember the most because it played in like most of the episodes was a Curve of the World.
Oh, well, that one. Yeah, we heard that every fucking day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good song.
That one and that song
Getting
Snook
long.
sings at the end were like in every episode pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, but not to
Next.
poop
Oh, yeah.
on Big World, but Curve of the World. I don't know if you've seen it lately. Harley shot it, but that really hurt a lot. Because there's the spinning overhead shot, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so we're all laying on our backs, and then we can't see. The monitor is reversed and then reversed the other way again because
Oh.
yeah. So then you get the double, like I can't. My brain exploded. We laid there for hours trying to get that shot. We almost lit on fire one time. They almost lit on fire.
Oh, my
Wow.
gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, they had to have
Yikes.
little LED units
Okay.
to get the shadows out because
Oh, okay.
on one puppet. So there's a lot of handheld and stationary little LED and fluorescent units to get reflection. And one of them lit on fire, and we were all on top of each other doing what we would call there's a lot of people on puppets
Yeah.
in camera.
Right.
It's kind of a park and bark, we would call it, because nobody's moving. We're just kind of like this. And yeah, one of the instruments lit on fire, and Snook is right behind us, and he's made of flammable material. And so we all like run. It wasn't a big fire, but just like a little flash of it.
Can imagine what was probably going through Peter's mind when that happened.
Right?
Well,
Oh.
yeah. After that, we did evacuation drills with him in the suit. Like, who carries him out, and how do we do this if he lights on fire?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was
Oh
crazy.
man. Wow.
Show business.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's showbiz. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind, if you don't want to, it's fine. But it's fine if you can hear a bit of Bob.
From me?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I haven't done it in so long. Okay. Let's see if I can. Hey, Snook. Can you help me find my thing? Usually it's hard to do without text. mostly because I learned it because I don't know, I would do this thing like this and totally like go off script and the director would get mad.
Yeah.
And I would do that, and then I would hate myself the next day because it's super hard to lip sync to all the. I don't really know. The ants. So all of those things that I would just record and be like, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll do it. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe not.
I mean, you can sync with your hand when you say it, but then
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys. I gotta snook. Like a 3-syllableizing snook. Oh, Bob, look at that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
nice.
He was such a well-built puppet. Really
Yeah.
photographed well. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
All those
And,
puppets are really
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
wonderfully
Yes.
designed and built.
Yeah. Krupa he rebuilt them. He fixed them.
Yeah, talk about, because I know earlier you mentioned puppet mechs. Jim Krupa is another, master with puppet
Oh
mechs.
yes.
He is the
Absolutely.
master. Ugh.
He is the master.
He's
There's
the
another guy.
master
There's a
behind
couple other
puppetry.
guys, but yeah, that's where I learned from. And I don't do crazy mechs, but
Yeah, he's
Right.
he's still out there doing it. He's still doing it for Sesame Street, I think.
yeah, every once in a while, yeah.
Doing
Yeah,
puppet
yeah.
mechs for that, yeah.
Yeah, he's again my mentor and a great friend, and he shares information. He's not like afraid. Sometimes you run into people and they're like, "This is a magic trick," and if I show you how to do it, you're gonna steal my job or whatever. It's pretty rare, but it happens. And Jim has never been like that. And I've worked with Jim. I've done mechs. I've done stuff for him, and I've worked at Puppet Heap with him for years and years. It's so great because when I'd ever fuck anything up, I'd go like, Jim, can you? What do I do? How do I do this? You're like, oh, you just have to rebuild the thing over here and put it in the slider, and then just like tighten that up.
Definitely.
Interesting.
I was working on Dr. Teeth. We did the full rebuild
Nice.
of the main characters
Uh-huh.
for Muppets back in the day because Disney asked for a full rebuild. I got hired onto the crew, and my task was to make Dr. Teeth. So I looked at all the original, what was left of the original, drawings, plans, of which there was not much. So, but I was working with a lot of Muppet people, so they knew.
Was that for the 2011 movie?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The one with Walter?
Actually, it was before that. I think it was earlier than that. But it was mostly just because Disney wanted to go back to original designs.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Okay.
Henson Shop had kind of slid off a little bit. No offense, because Raleigh and everybody is so great there, but
Well,
Right.
I think they kind of wanted to focus more on some of their other things too.
yeah. And
Right.
to the studio, if you go back and look at Dr. Teeth in the original form, he's just bare Scott foam. He's dyed green Scott foam, which you can't do because it just immediately. So we had to figure that out. And I was in the last phases. It used to keep me up all night. I was in the last phases. You have to drill a hole through this huge head. And if you make a mistake, you have to go right back to phase 1. And you're drilling because the glasses have to do this, right? So they're in the back of the hemisphere. Figured out how to do it. I made some tests, did it. Got the glasses on. They finally sourced out the lenses because they got them originally. They got the lenses from like a St. Mark's, New York, cheapo sunglass store. Got the sunglasses, put them in the glasses that I made that were already heat shrunk to fit curved around the head. Put them in, and I made the mistake of doing a big move at the end of the workday. And I tried to super glue them in, and they went. You guys know
no.
what crazy? You guys know what crazy is? So
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
end of day, and I go over to Jim Krupa, and I was like, I what do I do? And he's like, I maybe put some, like, polish it off. And he just like pats me on the shoulder.
there.
We both knew that I had to start all over again.
Yeah.
Oh
Uh,
He's a nice, very nice man.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
If there's one thing, if there's two things we've learned about glue, it's that, and you never glue hair back on. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
We had a friend of ours who's also a puppeteer, Brandon Smith, terrific guy
Oh,
working for Sesame
yes.
now. He told us of a story. One of his characters is like a professor, although he kind of looks like a mad scientist, to be honest. He kind of does. But
Why not?
one time, why not? One time he ripped his hair out, and he made the mistake of gluing the hair back on. Now, bad idea. It was a horrible idea. So just use safety pins for that. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's your
Mhm.
puppetry trip. There's your puppetry tip 101. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Yes.
Well,
big shout out
there's
to our
lots of
friend Brandon Smith, by the way.
tricks
Yes.
to the trade, and
Yep.
I've been a wrangler and a builder and a puppeteer, which is, I've been very fortunate. There are way better wranglers than me. There are way better builders than me. And so that keeps me humble, because if you ever get to go to the Henson shop or to Puppet Heap or to Monkey Boys, you see a lot of people doing cool stuff.
So you also worked on the Noggin series, Oobi, performing was it Maestru, various minor characters. Yes, we take a deep dive on this show. Yes, we do. Can you talk about a little bit working on Oobi?
Yeah, again, out of my depth on that one. But what was cool is that I knew Tim.
Right.
I knew most of the crew and the production staff and writers. Matt was on that too. I think, at least in the. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So I when I played the Maestro, I just kind of went with it. Once I get used to having my bare hand, and then once we were shooting, I think Kriegman directed that one. I also was cat in a tree. Cat in a tree with a cat head on it. And sometimes background characters. But Tim Lagasse was Oobi. All my friends were already doing that show, just a kind of a different vibe, because it was hands, so that was weird, but good. Tim Lagasse, I don't know if you've talked to him, but he knows his puppet history, so there's a whole hand mime tradition. And we had done a hand mime show together with a few other people, Eric Jacobson. But yeah, then I just kind of approached it like it was like a Beckett play.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Nice. And you also worked on Blues Room as well on the second season.
Yep.
Again, wonderful puppets too. I think,
Blues
Room's a wonderful spinoff to Blues.
Oh,
Room.
yes.
Great show.
Yes, wonderful show.
Yeah, Tim and Pam, I think, because I built a couple of those puppets. The jukebox and the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It had to have a high degree of finish, I think, for the client, because it was Nickelodeon. Brown Johnson was in charge at the time. Yeah, it was just like that was fun, but it was kind of, I didn't get to do much except for like build and right hand. And
Right, yeah.
Watch Leslie go crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And do her amazing things that she does.
Yes.
Definitely.
So you also had a chance to work on a few projects with Sesame Street and the Muppets, one of them being the special Elmo's Christmas Countdown. What was it like working on that special?
That was, I'm going to try to be honest and yet diplomatic. There were a lot of people, lots
Yeah.
of people.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember
Mm.
seeing the credits for that, and there were like a huge list of puppeteers that worked on it.
Yeah, I don't know that I even qualify as being a puppeteer, because just me was like holding stuff up in the air. I know Jennifer Hudson, there was this long tracking shot through the forest where it's snowing. I haven't seen it in forever, but there's a long tracking shot, dollying back in snow, live snow. And there's birds and things, and I'm like a chipmunk or something. And one of the guys, I think he came from Florida, I don't remember his name. He had like a toucan puppet right in the first trees. And you only get one monitor, it's like this big, and maybe it's like 5 feet away, so you can't really see. You can barely see what you're doing. Jennifer Hudson, while they're setting up lights, is it Jennifer Hudson? Yeah. Walks over to this toucan, and she's got a full face of makeup and kisses it on the face. And so now the toucan has a big lipstick smear on it.
Oh.
And there's 20 puppeteers already loaded for the shot. And I think Matt was directing, I think. Anyway, so they do the shot, they pull back, and the toucan is like trying to keep its head away from the shot because there's lipstick smeared. And they're like, no, turn the camera, you go, as the camera goes, turn the camera. And the guy's like, and then there was a whole thing, like the Wranglers come in, and they clean it up and everything like that. And then Peter Lentz was below me in that big shot. I think it was a year later. And he would be talking to somebody else. And so I would take handfuls of fake snow and pour it on his monitor. The shot would start to happen. They'd do the countdown. He'd like load up and be like, what is happening? I did it like 5 times. It was my favorite prank on Peter ever.
That's great.
Really, it was just like a big thing. I mean, Kevin stepped on my foot, and I had a huge deer on my arm at the big Park and Bark again, like all these creatures have come.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an experience. I don't know that I should get a credit because so many people were on that shot.
Yeah, and that was like the only thing you did, right? Was that big number?
Yeah, I don't really do Sesame Street. That's kind of covered up. There's no room for me there, but that's okay. That's fine. That's just life.
Right.
The most work I get from Sesame Workshop is Helpsters. But yeah, that was just because they needed all the people. They had a shot with 30 woodland creatures in the trees or something like that. It was insane. Insane shot.
Wow.
And and Kevin Clash stepped on my foot. I claimed to fame.
Yes. Definitely. So Matt or Julius, which one do you want to take the next one? I was gonna say, I will let Julius take this one.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Shall I? Now, you kind of brought this up where with the Muppets, you did some puppeteering for a Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa. Oh yeah, that's a really good special, honestly. Can you talk?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. again, that was a big, I don't really know even how I got that job. I think because I was just on the roster. And then Kirk Thatcher directed that, right? Yeah. And I had never met Kirk before. He was a very big character, very vibrant guy, love him to pieces, hilarious. Again, Tim Lagasse was there, a couple other people. I got to do Zoot, just like cross him through a shot. I totally fucked that up. There was a lot of people, a lot of shenanigans going on. And Matt was very sweet. He was like, Zoot walks, just has a certain like vibe, because Matt does. And Matt's an incredible actor as well as puppeteer. And then Tim and I, we're sitting. What happens is you sit in the bullpen and you wait till I think Barreto was puppet captain. Bill Barreto. He would come over and like kind of point, like if you sit outside Home Depot and do construction, he like points to me and Tim Lagasse and he's like, "You guys want to do the rats in the tree?" We'll say, "Yes, absolutely." So we have to do this whole like plug the tree in or unplug the tree. I don't know. It was kind of a technical guy. So we were both known for doing like technical stuff as well. In shot. And Dave Goals is there.
Oh, wow.
And Tim and I are like trying to figure out this gag.
So about 50 years of him being with Muppets. Like, oh my gosh.
Like unplugging the Christmas tree or plugging it in. Yeah, we plug it in. So that's really hard for me to do. It's really hard because you have to practically do it. Tim and I figure it out. And, there's a whole other shot that happens after the plug. We plug it in and we run away as rats. So we're trying to figure it out. I look over at Dave Goals, who is a lovely man. Hilarious. Yeah. So funny. And he's sitting there waiting with Gonzo on his arm. Like just sitting there. And there's just a person visit. They're just visiting. There's a woman she's not talent or anything. She's just sitting there on the floor with him talking. I was like, "Tim, who's that?" It was like, that's Dave's friend. I don't know. So Dave would wait. We had to do this shot. The camera would pan over and he would like do his thing. Beep, beep, beep. I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, right. And then I did a couple other crazy stuff that never got on camera, the whole mailroom scene. I was upstairs in the scaffolding pretty much all day, like working a rat like this.
Yeah, there were a lot of wonderful songs in that. I don't know if you were a part of this specific one, but the song My Best Christmas Yet, which was like the finale of like at the end of the special, where there's like a big group of everyone together.
Yeah. I wasn't vocal talent on that. I remember it. There was just so much. It was a crazy shoot. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Do you remember who you did? Because there were a lot of classic Muppet characters in that number.
I usually fought to be Beauregard because he's my favorite.
Oh, I love Beauregard.
Yes.
But I don't think I did. I think somebody else would get to Beauregard before me. And then I'm usually a rat. Yeah. Huh. Nothing really that sexy. Mostly. You guys know Tom Newby? You know Tom Newby? He's another mech guy builder. And Fred Buchholz. He's also one of the Muppet tech mech guys. Geniuses, all of them, next to Foz.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it was mostly like in big scenes where they needed lots of people. I'd just be like, beep, boop, boop, bop, beep, boop, beep, boop. And watching take after take after take after take after take after take. Take after take. Up in the scaffolding, laying on a sound blanket, freezing my balls off.
Definitely. So now moving on to the elementals, which I know you sort of founded. How was that created? Like, what went into the creation process of that?
That started with me doing performance art or theater, just live theater. And I was making masks, making puppets, roommates with a friend who was also sadly since passed. He was like a deadhead, sweetheart of a guy. He went to the same college where my father taught. That's how I knew him. That's how I got to move to New York because they needed a roommate. He was working with National Marionette Company in Connecticut, I think. Sororitiac senior and junior. And at that time, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because he would leave for like a month and go and do school shows with them and come back. And then he was working with Peter Baird, doing Baird shows because they were still being produced at the time. And this is actually a very formative experience. They did a production of Alice in Wonderland at the Houseman Theater in Theater Row. I don't think it's there anymore. New York City, Manhattan. He's like, you should come see it. I was like, puppets. Whatever. You're doing it. Okay, it's free. So I go. I watch Alice in Wonderland. And it's like, okay, it's Alice in Wonderland. And then they do what they would call, I think they called it variety. So there'd be a second half of the show where it'd just be like little snippet pieces. You guys ever see Bill Baird Company?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So there was one part called it's called rope dancers. Anyway, there were bodies made out of rope, thick like rope, legs, stick figures, and they just danced to a trog song. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. And it was a Czech black or like black theater. So it was all black behind them and special lighting. So they floated in space and you couldn't see the operators. And I'd never seen that before. And I just lost my mind. And it just blew my mind. I was like, this is the coolest thing. It inspired me to do tabletop. So go backstage, there's a John, my friend, Peter, who I met for the first time there. I met Randy Carfagno there, Eric Jacobson.
Oh yeah.
So I go backstage and I'm expecting these rope things to be these mechanical, like super animatronic thingamabobs, because that's what I thought puppets were doing, because that's what movies were doing. Animatronic and controls and stuff. And no, it's just like a couple of poles and they just, they're doing this and dancing. And it totally blew my mind, the simplicity, but then the complete connection and physicality. And then that was a big thing because John was way into it, my roommate at the time. And then when I started to make puppets, Peter came on to play and he would give us advice, Peter Baird. John and I would work on stuff. And then I had opportunities to do shows, and it's hard to do puppets on your own. I mean, for me at the time, I was like, let's try to do 4-person company. So we did that for a while. We rehearsed in my apartment. My cat would love the shadow show. The cat would just jump up on the shadows. And we had a lot of good times. We did an Aerosmith record release party.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. There's a picture of Steven Tyler shaking the hands of the puppet.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Cool.
wonderful.
He was a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were performing it and we're all in black behind this weird green puppet guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was meeting with his management team before they opened up the show. There was a lot of these little sections. all the curtains were to go up and the show started. And he looked over at the puppet and I was like, keep dancing, keep dancing. My arms are dying. And he looks over, he's like, what the fuck is that? He comes over, he's like, looks at the puppet, he's like, what are you guys doing? It's like, oh, I gotta see this. I gotta see this. We take our hoods off. And he's like, he looks at the puppet, he's like, why are you rehearse in a mirror? He's like, yeah, we have to, yeah. Because otherwise we don't have a monitor. We're doing it live, so we have to know what it looks like from behind. It's like, man, I see some cool shit sometimes, and that's some cool shit. That's pretty much it. Then someone dragged him away and had to make a decision about him.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, absolutely. So over the years, the Elementals puppets have been used in various commercials. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh man, shoot. I don't even remember. Do you remember? Do you have an example? Elementals puppets. Wait, that was a long time ago. Hold on. Oh, for Curious Pictures, yeah.
Oh, they were. I know they were used on the Nickelodeon show Action League Now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we were on PBS too. We did a couple of things for the Egg. Did a lot of IDs for them.
I think there was
MTV2, probably.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking. Yeah.
There was a MasterCard one too, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a Christmassy kind of thing.
Oh my God, I have no memory of that. MasterCard?
Yeah.
I should put that on my resume. I know that we did a Spike Lee commercial for when the .com boom was happening.
Oh, okay.
It aired during the Oscars. It was called it was like a talent website. It was called something.com, but it was like for actors to you put your headshot and your resume up on this website. What's it called? That was another rando thing that I went to with my friend Tim, and we auditioned, and then Spike Lee was directing the commercial. I was Tom Waits, and Tim was like this general guy. Yeah. What else? Jeez, thanks for reminding me. Really? MasterCard? Shit, I have to Google myself.
Maybe if I find it again, I can email it to you, like find a link and like email it to you.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you get to be my age. Some things just kind of drift away.
Yeah, things blur together. Yeah, understandable.
I did a lot of work with Curious Studios.
Okay, yeah.
Still going. So a little Curious and a lot of commercials for them.
Oh, I remember A Little Curious. Yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah. And but a bunch of they did lots of interstitials for MTV. They were the studio behind the original Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the series too. Yeah. Steve Oakes, he was the guy.
Nice. Nice. So Matt or Julius, which one?
Your turn. Okay. You mentioned this at the beginning. They were also seen in the musical show Uncle Jimmy's Dirty Basement. Yes. What was it like working on that?
That was really great and very challenging. We, like I said before, we were asked to host the late night cabaret for the Henson International Festival of Puppetry. So there would be a lot of acts coming on, like a cabaret. So I couldn't really do it as a puppeteer because I can't read the intro cards through a hood. So I asked some friends of mine who were in a band called Cuckoo Handler, and I came up with this idea that we would have a live band, which would cover the transitions because, you know, puppeteers, they have stuff, things coming in, things going out. Very boring to have a guy just stand there and talk. So I asked these guys, friends of mine, we had done shows together before, if they would come on and do, and I pitched it to Henson and they were like, sure. And so we did that, and I decided to just become this character to introduce and let everybody else do the puppets. So I put on clown makeup. I would do patter in between, the band would play. Then we started like improvising songs together in between. And then we did it the next year, or the next year. And between that, we had rehearsed a little bit more, and people were really responding to it positively. And I had been in bands my whole life too. And they wore crazy costumes, and great musicianship. And I think it was me, we kind of came up with it together to form Uncle Jimmy's Dirty Basement. Because they would do them, and we would do us puppet-wise, and they would kind of like clash. I was like, why don't we just like smush them together? Puppet rock. And they were into it. We had a lot of great shows. We ran for a long time at the Bowery Poetry Club. We had a good run at PS 122. You can see that one on YouTube. It's called Wearing the Hat of the Cat Hunt.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a lot of people. Always a challenge to manage everybody's schedule, to rehearse, to perform, get paid. We were at PS 122 and we were selling out the house, but then they had to let someone else come in and do their show because they got canceled because someone got injured. And so we kind of lost our run there. And then, you know, things happen to people. People get sick, people get married, people have kids.
Right. Move on to different things. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you were also a cast member of Henson Alternative's off-Broadway show, Stuffed and Unstrung. What was working on that like?
Oh my God, you guys are really getting it. I'm trying to think of the MasterCard thing. That was probably the best job I've ever, my second best job I've ever had. I knew they were coming to town to do that show, and I knew they were already cast. But a lot of them were from LA, and so they're trying to cut costs for housing. So they started to like farm out people who lived in the area. And then they would have these classes, improv classes, every week in the theater with Patrick Bristow, who's a genius.
Oh yeah, I love Patrick.
Yes,
He's a previous
and a
guest
previous
as well.
guest.
Oh yes, yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, he's just
Yeah, he's
just
awesome.
so yeah.
Great guy.
So I was convinced of my own greatness going into this class about improv because I just make stuff up, man. I'm super funny. I'm Uncle Jimmy. I'm the shit. Go to this class, a bunch of other puppeteers who also want to be in the show. And then Patrick is our teacher. And he is one of the best teachers I've ever worked with.
Yeah, Patrick Bristow.
Yes.
Guy.
Just, I mean, his compassion and his focus and the way he motivates change in the student is really rare. And so I went to the first class and I was like, oh, I am, again, way out of my depth, but I think I could do it. Because a lot of people, not to toot my own horn, but a lot of people can put their hand in the air and say words. It's a whole other thing to like tell a story and do the things. And so we kind of connect a little bit because I work hard. I worked really hard. And because I wanted to be in the show. I think maybe a month went by. And this other guy who wasn't so good, but he was more connected to certain people involved in the production, not Patrick, he got the slot instead of me. And I was super pissed off. So I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to class anymore. This is bullshit. I go home and think about it. I'm like, get yourself together. Get your ego out of the way. This is an opportunity. You're not paying for this. You have a free opportunity to learn something. So I go back in the next couple of weeks and I like push. I'm just like in every moment. It's like, because it'd be like, who wants to be in this? Be like, me. And Patrick at one point, because a lot of it is listening. You have to hear a lot of stuff that happens.
Right.
Patrick, at the time I smoked, I think at the time he smoked at the time. I don't know if he still smokes. Smoke break. I'm outside and he says to me, so how many kids? Like 6 in your family? Like, how do you fucking know that? What? So you're third. Like I'm fourth, but how the fuck? He's like, and they're divorced, right? He's like, well, yeah, that's easy. And he says, no, I could tell that you can keep track of 3 different conversations at the same time. Wow, I never really thought of it that way. And so I would ask him questions. I took lots of notes. I still have my notebook. I finally got into the show. You have to learn 2 set pieces, the opening number and the closing number. So they sent me a video of my track, my choreography with the puppet. And I rehearsed it, and then I went in to be set in the show. And they asked all the cast members to come in 2 hours earlier than normal to put me into the show so they could see that I was doing the track. And I knew every moment of it. And I did the track, both tracks. And Patrick looks at the cast members and says, well, isn't it a surprise that someone actually shows up prepared? James Godwin knows what he's doing. So that gives everybody an hour off. See you in an hour. And he gave me a big hug.
Oh.
That,
Wow.
Oh.
I was like, I show up prepared. If I didn't, my dad would fucking slap me. That's just, if I wasn't there knowing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
That's just the way I was brought up. And I was motivated. And so we do the show. Oh, no, we go in. I walk around the block for an hour. It's boiling hot. July. Like,
Oh my gosh.
a couple of days ago, I guess now. Yeah. I just walk around. Come back into the theater at call time. And I go into the dressing room, and Brian Henson is sitting there. And I'm like, fuck me. This is my first. And Brian is here. I had never met Brian. I mean, I like at a party, I shook his hand, maybe. Never actually spoke a word. He's like sitting on a chair talking. Like, oh my God. Already my nerves are like here. Now they're like here. Talked to Brian for a little bit. I used to have this ritual where I'd go out and like iron my shirt, my black shirt. And we start the show. And the hardest part about that show is when you're sitting in the chair off to the side. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. But you sit off to the side while other people do stuff, while you're thinking about what you're going to do. But you have to act like, this is so much fun. But you're also shitting your pants because you're trying to figure out what to do next thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I didn't expect this, but okay. And Patrick picks you to do certain sketches. and he asks me to do, and I had a couple friends show up to see me. Amy Garcia, who's now a huge Broadway star, a bunch of people. I think Tyler was still in the show back then. So that was good support. Anyway, there's a sketch called, you just speak a different language. And then the scenario is you're in jail or you're something. Luckily, the language was German, and the sketch was, I was explaining my art to a collector with a puppet. And so I was so flaming on adrenaline that I just ripped into this thing. It was in the first act. I get a huge bunch of boomers, like bam, 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 laughs. Go back and I sit in my chair and go backstage. Eric's like, that was great, man. You totally killed. That was awesome. I'm so glad you heard the show. And Patrick gives me notes at the break. I'm like, nobody gives notes in intermission. What are you doing? Gives me notes. I take it. Come back. Do the second act. I don't even remember what happened in the second act. I did a couple sketches, but then there's the end sequence. You have to memorize, you have to dance around. Then you have to look upstage into a monitor to see the camera that's behind you. So again, it's reverse. It's like this, it's mirror. So when your brain gets used to mirror monitor or like reverse, it's really hard to get your focus when you're doing this, right? Backwards. But I already know it, but I'm so like out of my mind. It's the end of the show. And I finish, and I know that I'm looking upstage, and I drop the puppet down out of shot. Take a huge breath, and then Patrick Bristow, forever after that, tells everyone, James Godwin, at the end of the show, when he was done, he just like this steam came out of his face because he was so relieved. He was like, Patrick was so beautiful. He was like, I love to see that in performers when you made it all the way through to the end and you were great. You know, he's a very supportive performer, coach, but he loved to do an impression of me at the end of the show.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, long story short.
That's
Wow.
wow.
Now,
One of the best jobs ever. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Now you've also
Yes.
done some work as a voice actor as well.
Yep.
Yes. Can you talk about some of your voiceover work that you've done? What the hell do you want? Jeez.
The voiceover work.
Did a spot for Smirnoff Ice. I did a spot for Ice Age. I was in Ice Age 2.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
I was the traffic vulture, which was a really fun job. Ice Age or Smirnoff Ice was really fun because it was just a list of weird voices that they gave you at the audition. So there was like man drowning, the sun, a tree in a rainstorm, all these kind of rando things. And so you had to read this 2 lines of copy for Smirnoff Ice as those descriptions. So I was like, oh yeah, this is totally up my alley. So I just like read what they told me. I did Drowning Man. And I got cast for Drowning Man. And I got cast. In those days, you had to go to the studio. Went to the studio, ended up with these 2 guys where we had to be an angry mob from 17th century England saying this copy. And so these two guys are talking. They know each other. I don't know that. And we're all doing it on one drop mic. And they're talking, and I'm trying to be like friendly. So I say to the guys, and they're older than me, I'm like, so what's the craziest job you guys ever did? One guy's like, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm like, tell me, is it, you know that dog food commercial, Chuck Wagon? You guys might be too young for that.
I think I've seen it. Yeah.
It's like a animated Chuck Wagon, and the dog chases it through into the kitchen, and the Chuck Wagon disappears into the cupboard. There's food. It's like dry dog food that you put hot water on. And he's like, yeah, they called me in. They had a dog. And the dog wouldn't make any noises. So they called me in, and I did this. And the other guy's like, oh, I have you beat. I got you beat on this one. And he was the father of one of the persons who worked at my agency. Like one of my agents. There was a team. He was his father because he did voiceover. So that's why he got into the business. Anyway, he's doing the session. And I'm like, oh, I know your son, and yada, yada. I got you beat. You know the movie The Exorcist? Of course, yeah. You know when she's like saying all the dirty words? I'm like, yeah, that's what's her name? Mercedes McAdam or whatever. But, yeah, some of it. The dirty words are me. They called me, they flew me over to LA, and I'm the one going, your mother sucks in hell. In a raspy voice. I went there and I did a short session in the afternoon. I was like, okay, you win. So that was fun. I did a speed read for what's the thing where like guys adopt younger boys to be their like adopted dad or something. I forget what that's called. There used to be a thing where you could be a dad for a weekend or something.
Oh, is it like one of those like Big Brother type programs?
Yeah, Big Brother. That's it. Big Brother.
Yeah.
Probably can't do that anymore, but
right.
Yeah.
I did a speed read for that, which was just the legal copy, which I couldn't even believe I was doing. I worked on Sheep in the Big City with Mo Willems.
Oh yes, I remember that show. Yeah.
A couple of seasons. Mo gave me, I don't even know how I got hired for that job, but Mo was very sweet, super genius guy.
And for those who don't know who Mo Willems is, he's a wonderful writer and author who's done some work for Sesame Street, and created Sheep in the Big City.
Yeah.
Bunch of
so yeah, I played Private Public and The Farmer and any other random stuff he would throw my way. Worked with Stephanie D'Abruzzo on that.
Yeah, we previously
Sheriff
her. She was
really fun.
Awesome.
Mo is a great director. Studio was really nice to record in. That was really fun. I often forget that I was even in that show. Private Public. What else? Geez. Yeah, Ice Age 2. Bunch of commercials, but they just go by so fast, and I really have no record of them. I probably should have started keeping a diary earlier.
Definitely.
Lots of video stuff when they used to do that. Yeah, I honestly can't remember. There was a good run there for a while, but then the internet kind of killed it.
Yeah. So now moving on to art, how did painting and drawing come into play?
I had a really good high school teacher, and he was known for getting people scholarships to go to school. which I had heard about. So I was doing, school plays, I was doing art. I was a freshman, and we did this drawing exercise. I had been drawing before that, but I was frustrated because I didn't have any consistency in what I was doing. And he did this exercise, and he came over and he said, "Wow, you are fast and good." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I don't really hear that. That's cool. Cool." And so I kept doing the exercises that he prescribed. Then I put my stuff in a couple of like juried shows. They'd have little like the Kiwanis Club or the women's group would have an art show or something. So I would show my work there. I started to win some awards. And then when I got to be a junior, used to be Scholastic, used to have this thing called the Gold Keys, where you apply in this national art competition. You win a gold key, you were juried in. Actually, I have it right here. It's weird. One of the opportunities was that if you win this national scholarship competition, you get a free ride to the participating colleges. So I won the national competition. I got a full scholarship to Columbus College of Art and Design. And my parents were happy. All the dudes who bullied me at high school were sitting in the audience when I waved goodbye as I went off to college.
Wow.
But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, and I
Yeah.
attribute that mostly to my teacher, who was keeping me in line, doing the things I needed to do to get there. If
Absolutely.
that wasn't there, I don't know. I really don't know what would have happened. But
Yeah.
I got passionate for painting during high school. I did a lot of that 3D work too. And then once I went to art school, and there were a bunch of other artist weirdos, freakazoids, studios full of paint, crazy shit. It was awesome. It was like a dream. It was like, oh, yay!
Yeah.
But how do I
Yeah.
do laundry? Hard fought lesson.
So, to anyone watching or listening, what would you like to say to those who supported you throughout your career?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're doing. I think generosity is probably the most important lesson that I've learned. I used to think that I needed to keep things to myself in order to feel powerful. And through working at the O'Neill Center and sharing and teaching people, or being with people through their process, has given me a complete turnover. Because when you teach people, you say things that you didn't know you thought, and you realize your value in supporting other people to do what they want to do. I think support is the most, support, generosity, and also being confident in not fitting a societal norm or fitting into a mold. I think molds are getting even firmer now, even though we think the internet gives everybody freedom to do whatever they want. My fear is that people who are growing as artists might perceive something in the world that will act against their better interests. It's really hard to put into words. If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a puppeteer, find other people who do it. It's really hard to be a puppeteer on your own. Go to a monitor class, find a monitor class, do monitors at home, get on feet and go and do a comedy club, go out in the world and be in front of people. Live audiences now we can do again. I think that's the best way. If you want to perform, if you want to be a visual artist, that's kind of a different thing. I think the most important is being in front of live people and finding people who will support you, like a team.
Definitely, yeah.
You know? I think it seems like you guys have that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we
And,
do.
and it's weird because people will come into your life that you don't expect. Be open to change, chaos. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the toughest one. That is the absolute toughest one.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And believe in yourself. You know, have fun.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Do fun
Absolutely.
things.
Yep.
You know, just keep on doing it until you know what's gonna happen. You know.
Keep doing
Keep on,
your own thing.
Yeah.
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 And also, like, if you want to puppetry, like the really good ones, the really good puppeteers are also really good actors.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the acting part of it is a slippery thing because now, well, it's always been that way, but most people think that you've got to be a handsome Tom Cruise actor guy does this, or actor woman who's gorgeous does that. It's not really about that. It's getting some technical abilities. Like Tyler Bunch is another perfect example of a great, and Matt too. Matt went to school for acting. Tyler went to school for acting. There are just like certain really simple techniques, but once you get them, once you see, or if you see them and you study them, both in live theater and in film and stuff, it really just elevates your game. You know, when you have a character and you figure out who the character is, what the character is doing, where the character is coming from, where the character is going, once.
Right.
Simple stuff like that, and that sort of thing really especially elevates puppetry. That's what I tell any student that I work with. I mean, you can wiggle a, hey, what are you doing out there? Yeah. You know, I'm not saying anything. I'm just like blabbing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know, figure out why puppets. That's the other one.
Right.
Yeah.
You always have to ask yourself why puppets. Because if there's no action, or if there's no motivated animation, you can just be a human and say words.
Exactly.
It's the biggest question we all ask each other.
Right.
Why do you need puppets in this?
Yeah.
Usually it's an otherworldly thing, mythological thing, animals. Those sorts of things motivate choices to use puppets. It's also a form of magic, right? So
yeah,
it's one of the oldest forms. Ventriloquism was done by shamans thousands and thousands of years ago to fool little kids out of feeling like they had the flu.
Yeah.
Yes. So if people would like to connect with you, where can people find you?
No, don't even, no. No, I mean, if you want to, I'm at Jimbo Godwin at Instagram. That's pretty much my only platform.
Nice.
Awesome.
Or you can send my email out to people or put it on here. That's fine if they want to talk to me. I talk to people all the time. I coach people, you know, building and whatever's. But yeah, nice. Instagram is probably the best place.
Nice. Like your Instagram would be down below.
It's an open platform. It's easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So people can follow you on it through Instagram.
Yes. So now, Go ahead, Matt.
So this last question that Chris is gonna ask, we ask this to
Yes.
every guest. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so of course this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. So in your own words, when you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or how would you define the word nostalgia?
Good one. I think there are two sides to nostalgia. One is not necessarily positive, negative, because you can't have a coin without two sides, right? You can't fall asleep without being awake, and
Right.
that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. We live close to that kind of stuff too. So yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't
Or,
happened on my end.
Well, lucky you. We live down the street from a fire department. Yeah, sure we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, me too. Nostalgia. It's a yearning for things from the past, I think is the dictionary definition. A yearning, but it's also an appreciation. So you run the risk of thinking you're appreciating while you're yearning, and sometimes yearning can keep you trapped in the past that's no longer there. It's also important to be aware of your past in order to grow into the future. Nostalgia, I'm trying to think of the etymology of the word. It's also helpful to keep you appreciative of those that you've lost, loved ones, mentors, lovers, friends, icons, people you've never met. Like, you know, I have lots of heroes I've never met, male and female. And a lot of their work, you know, lives on in media, but they're not here anymore. So it's a really interesting concept. It's kind of like melancholy, concept of being melancholy. Because there's a good part to it. Like if you're going to get depressed, just go on and get depressed, you know?
Right.
But if you're going to be nostalgic, go on and be nostalgic.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You know, just get in there and do it. Like every once in a while, I just want to see this thing, and then I'll just do a deep dive and I'll watch the movie.
Right.
Or see the YouTube clip of the Carol Burnett show or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it'll remind me of my dad, and I'll think about my dad, and then I'll value those times, right? So it motivates me to keep doing what being proud.
Yeah. Great word to end on. Well, James, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
Yes, thank you very much. You know, thank you so much, James, for what you've done over years. Like, you know, especially it's Big Big World and you know, Pooh, Between the Lines, a lot of things that you've done, and thank you for what you've done, be a part of our lives, and keep up your great work. And can I wait what's next in store for you?
Me too. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll have a hot dog, maybe.
Absolutely. Well,
short term.
Absolutely. Well, keep in touch, James, and like Jake said, I'll let you know when this goes up.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Bob, is there any final words to end this off?
Yeah, just be nice to the ants, you guys.
Exactly.
Well,
well, enjoy the rest of your day, James. That's goodbye from us as well.
yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Absolutely enjoyed our time with James Godwin, getting to hear all his stories about Big Big World, a whole bunch of other things. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.